Hi, this is Weekly Reflections, and I'm NancyJoy. We are right at, Monday, Tuesday will be at the midpoint between the March 8th eclipse and the 23rd eclipse. And of course, as I mentioned last week, we have equinox coming sort of on March 20th. Some points like Central Time US, it'll be at 11:30 p.m. on the 19th. And so here we are between the two eclipses with the equinox, which of course is the seeds and the beginnings and the openings at spring equinox here in this hemisphere. And that eclipse, I can certainly say I feel it. And last week we talked about tempers would be flaring. I have certainly found that to be the case. Tempers have been flaring, which means there's healing going on. There's feelings coming up and shifting happening. In the world, certainly things intensified, all the world dramas, including, oh my gosh, this election, right, here in the U.S. For me personally, there was a brief visit back to court with our friends, our neighbors, and that got my temper flaring a little bit, I have to admit. And so where we are with this right now, I call this reflections wrapped around the axle, because that's kind of what it feels like right now. You've got this axle that's going to make things move forward and start and change and shift. And then you have all this confusion and tension wrapped around it. So it's hard to get it moving, both in our own lives and on the world stage. And so, there's so many different, here's my quote. It's from Oriah Mountain Astrologer this week. And she says, sometimes you have to take leave of what you think you know behind. No one really wants to do this. Thinking we know things can be very comforting. And there's where you get, into your fundamental beliefs that keep you stuck so you can't see anything else. I remember my son saying to me not too long ago, if you only read one particular news source, or if you read only alternative media, or you only watch the manipulated media, you're only going to get the point of view, and you're usually watching to hear your own point of view validated. Well, there isn't a lot of expansion and growth in that way of being, and yet we all seem to gravitate there. And at this time, with so many different points of views out on the internet colliding, and misinformation as well as what is accurate information, and you read something and you want to believe it, and then doubt comes in and says, well, this couldn't possibly be true. And you read something else and you say, well, that's so terrible, I don't want to believe it. You've got all this confusion going on heading into this lunar eclipse in Libra. Libra, good old Libra, wanting to weigh things out. So it brings me back to something Ezekiel taught me years ago. He said, NancyJoy, I don't know is a good place to be. Because that's the only place you're teachable. If you already know something and you're already sure of it, you're not going to expand much. You're not going to learn much beyond that. And as we know, whatever we thought we believed a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, other than the main point of God Creator living in our hearts and the wonderful love on our planet, that remains constant. But all the rest shifts and fluctuates, right? So it can be disheartening and confusing. And so when Ezekiel says this to me, where I've gone with it over the years, and I had to return to it to find some place in myself that I could work with this week between the eclipses. And usually, if I read something, I hear something, I sit in court and I listen to something about me. And of course, there you can't speak up. You just have to take it in. But what I do is I feel what's right for me in the moment. And I stay with that until in that moment, that's my point of truth. However, I agree with myself, I'm not going to become fundamental. I'm going to stay open for any kind of information or experience that expands my reality, because that's where I grow. Your heart doesn't always lead you on the easiest path, but it does lead you on the path that is just right for you, for where you're going, for what you need to expand and what you need to learn. So if you're confused and frustrated, know that that's probably your ego messing around with you to maintain control as you're breaking through to these new realities. So I find this to be good advice. And when I hear some information that's way out of my box and I can hardly believe it to be true, I feel for a hook or a latch, and I close my eyes and I take a deep breath and I say, well, maybe, perhaps, And at this point, I've allowed that's the opening. I've allowed myself to at least explore rather than that iron curtain that goes down. No, this is the way it is, which, as we've been talking about, has everybody stuck in their point of view and in duality, when what we want to do is bring that together and create a solution. So the first place you have to bring it together to create a solution is here in your heart, right? So I've discovered most of the time when I get into this craziness of the mental constructs, I can get to the place where I realize they don't matter. It affects me only to the extent that I allow myself the feelings to explore, and I use them to grow, not the other way around. I don't use them to control my belief. I use them to expand my belief and shift, which is the only way we're going to get into this new reality and really live it, right? So this week, especially during the coming to the next eclipse, it's very crazy out there, folks. The weather is windy, crazy nuts, inside and out. So give this a try when you get, quote, wrapped around the axle with so many conflicting points of view, and catch the magic of your own heart, because that's where you'll find your own truth in any moment, and your heart's always willing to explore. So have a great week. I'll be back right around the equinox, so we'll talk a little bit more about that then. And take care of who you are. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.